The Quran, Islamic tradition, has many different names for Allah, the so-called 99 names of Allah, but none of those names is Father. Is the God of the Quran the same as the God of the Bible?
No, and you, I mean, one, you could point out that the God of the Bible is, um, is has a plurality within his nature, Old Testament or New Testament. But even with what in the God of the Quran supposedly doesn't, I think if you go to the sources, you do find some plurality there. But on the issue you just brought up of Old Testament or New Testament, God is Father. God is our Father in heaven. Old Testament or New Testament. And so if Muhammad is the sort of third installment that he claims to be, if he's like Return of the Jedi, right, to the earlier scriptures, then he should be consistent with that. But Allah is a father to no one. There's nothing that says Allah is a father of any
And a
kind.
Muslim does not relate to Allah as a
No.
child, to
No.
intimate father, son, daughter
No,
relationship.
not at all. And this actually ends up affecting other issues. So in Islam, Allah is a father to no one, and it's not a biological father. He is a father in no sense, not biological, not spiritual. He is a father in no way. And the highest relationship you can have with Allah, according to the Quran, is a slave to master relationship. That's what the Quran says. You know, they say Allah has a son. No, there is no one who approaches him as anything other than a slave. Now think about this. In Old Testament or New Testament, it's a father-son or father-daughter relationship with God. And parents understand. Your child is born. You don't sit there and say, okay, well, let me see what this child is going to do, if he's going to be good or bad, and then I'll decide whether I'm going to love him. Right? You just automatically love your child, right? If you had a slave, that's a different story. If you had a good slave, you might love the slave. If you had a bad slave, you wouldn't love the slave. But the obligation is on the slave to earn the love and respect of his master. A child doesn't have to earn it. And so, what you find in Islam is people who are constantly trying to win Allah's approval by the things that they're doing. And in the Quran, Allah specifically says that He has no love for unbelievers. So Allah does not love unbelievers. Allah doesn't love the proud. Allah doesn't love the boastful. There's all kinds of verses on all the people that Allah doesn't love. He doesn't love the mischief makers. He doesn't love all kinds of people. But in the Quran, you're told Allah doesn't love unbelievers. And so if you want Allah's love, He says, first you believe in Him and believe in Muhammad, and then Allah might love you. Now just notice the complete reversal there, right? You love Allah first and do what He says first, and then He might love you. Whereas in Christianity, of course, we love God because God first loved us, right? God starts it.
Yeah.
And so in Islam, notice this kind of love is no better than the kind of love Jesus condemned in the Sermon on the Mount, right? If you love those who love you, what are you doing more than tax collectors and so on? What are you doing more than anyone? Anyone can love someone who loves them first. And so, yeah, when you look at that, you find out that this theology of denying God as our Father and instead portraying God as our heavenly slave master, that's behind a lot of things. People constantly trying to show themselves approved to Allah as worthy slaves.
How about even the way they pray, lining up? Does everything have to be perfect order for Allah?
That and notice the only guarantee you have is if you're actually going out waging jihad. That's where you have something like a promise or guarantee of heaven. So that's what you really have. A lot of the terrorist attacks over the years that have been carried out, at the end of the day, they're people who are terrified of their eternal destiny. And man, I've done a lot of bad things in my life, and the only way I can know that I'm actually going to heaven is if I go slaughter a bunch of people in the name of God, because that's the ultimate way to show that I'm the best possible slave. You don't have to do that if you're a son.